is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess. Yeah. Life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess. Yes. Life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess. I'm trying, I'm crying, I feel like I'm dying. I'm doing my best.
All right, welcome back to Being Human and Other Shit. Today I am on the ancestral homeland of the Nisenan people, and I acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. And today we have a very special guest, Stephen Nash. Stacy and I, if you recall, we talked about our very romantic summer getaway to Two Bunch Palms in Palm Springs, and this is where we met this beautiful human being who is a tarot card reader. So we had an amazing session with him and thought we would pick his brain a little bit, and he was generous enough to lend his time and his expertise. So welcome, Stephen. We really appreciate you taking the time. And
thank you so much. It's wonderful seeing you beautiful faces again.
Oh, thank you.
We missed you.
We really do. We talk about you all the time.
We do. We tell everybody about you.
Yeah, we actually just were in Palm Springs a couple weeks ago for like an event. And I kept telling Melissa, like, should we sneak away to Two Bunch Palms? Like, see if they're over there. And then we were like, oh, we got to pull in a hot tub right here. Like, let's just enjoy where we're at.
That's great.
Yeah. So it was an awesome trip, and we were very happy to meet you. So I would love if you could just tell us about yourself, where you're from, and kind of your upbringing, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Santa Ana, California, Orange County. And I was adopted at the age of 2. So I have found my birth family, but I was raised by the Nashes, and they were very fundamentalist Christian, very conservative. Ooh. And we lived in Orange County till I was about 12. Not about 12, I was 12. And then we moved to Oregon. And they kind of moved a lot, they kind of bought and sold houses and ranches and property. And, by junior high, I was wondering if we were in the witness protection program. It was like, it wasn't until high school or finally I can be in one school building, more than 2 years in a row. And so we ended up in Southern Oregon on a ranch, and again, very conservative. And my mom had a lovely way every time they started a new church to pimp me out as the organ monkey and inform me, oh, this is the church we're going to, Stephen. Oh, by the way, you're the new church pianist. I'm like, what? Yeah, I don't think my opinion was ever in that equation.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it at all.
No. So I was always interested in tarot. Even as a kid, you would see it in movies and TV, and I just thought it was so cool. It was like the cards were so beautiful, and I loved the reverence and the ritual of how the cards were being used. And of course, then I wanted cards in junior high, and my mother reacted in a way you thought I just asked her if I could have a pet demon or something. So, that went over well. So it was very, very conservative. So this kind of went way against my parents' fundamentalist upbringing. You just kind of know what you can ask for and what you can say and what you can't say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. So it's funny just that we were just talking right before we started recording, though, the perception that a lot of people have about tarot in general is it's very witchy, and then you mentioned that TV kind of portrays it like that, and so mainstream media is kind of putting a bad rap on tarot, but there's so much more depth to that.
There's so much more depth to it, and it's a tool so many people can use for themselves, even if they don't want to read for other people, even just for their own personal development. It can also show people energies that we're operating in, what we're navigating in. A lot of people, walk around feeling like they're in a lot of confusion. They're being pulled here and there, and they're caught up in the glamours of illusion of social media, and illusions of power and illusions of whatever. And so they can feel very, very conflicted. So tarot can be very predictive. It can be. the cards themselves have no power. It's just paper and ink. It's what the images trigger in one's mind. So that's what I work with a lot with like my students. I've had a couple students lately who were really interested. I met them at Two Bunch Palms.
Nice.
And were really interested. And so I started teaching them, and they are just taking off. They're like, I had no idea what I was capable of. I had no idea that, I just didn't know. You only know what you know.
Yeah.
So it can be a very good tool for many people for their own self-discovery, their own self-development, to help give them guidance, clarity. It can be used on so many different levels.
Well, I feel like Melissa and I totally got a taste of that when we, took your class at Two Bunch Palms, because I think I could speak for both of us that we weren't going in expecting it to be so thorough.
Mhm.
I was literally expecting to sit around a table with a bunch of people and just get a reading, and the way the presentation, like you had the documents, I still have them, and just telling us to like write on the cards and everything. People really do. Like, I literally every day get somebody trying to request me on Instagram, like a tarot card reader, and they're like, it just really called to me to like reach out to you. That'll be $150. I'm like,
Yeah, I get those too.
yeah. If it's like, damn, I liked one freaking post and shit, and I got 50 requests. Yeah.
That's been happening to me with all this vegan stuff. I'm like, I'm not vegan anymore. Leave me alone.
I like cheese. Fuck off.
It's so funny. So you read tarot as a profession, right? Is this your main profession?
This is teaching classes and reading tarot is probably say 2/3 of my profession. The other is my business partner, Gail, and I have a store within a store in Palm Desert on El Paseo. And can I do a cheap plug?
Please do.
Please plug everything.
Okay, fabulous. It's in a wonderful home and art store called Goldfield Home. And the name of our business is V&G Hipwear. And you can find us on V&G Palm Springs on Instagram. So that's VANDG Palm Springs. And check out a lot of what we do. We design and sew. I have 4 of my machines right there on property, and make handbags, belts, shirts, whatever. I've been working on messenger bags, purses, out of leather, whatever.
God, you can't get any cooler.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, you just show up in your V-neck, you got your little chesticles out, looking hot. Just so freaking cool.
Now you just sit in your store and you actually sew items.
Like, you can't get any cooler.
Between the customers, I go in the back and I put on Netflix or music or podcasts, and I just sit there and design. We design and I sew, and we just kind of make the magic happen.
That's so awesome.
That is.
So as far as your tarot reading profession, what kind of services do you like offer your clients? Is it
what I do is, it for most people, it's helping to get clarity to be able to move through challenges or understand, a lot of people feel like they don't have any options.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it is about bringing options to the surface with clarity so people can make choices for themselves. A lot of people can just get so caught up in their own confusion, they can't see their way around challenges. And, a lot of times external things happen that cause internal changes. And so a person could feel blindsided by something or didn't see it coming. They don't know what to do with it, and now they have to, they kind of stop, and now they have to do all this internal work, kind of that queen energy, that internal work. All right, what do I think about this? Am I down with this? Which way do I want to go? How do I want to see this? And we have to do all this internal work and have it come together so it can set and gel to be able to express it on an external level. So, a lot of people get caught up in that and they just don't see their options. A lot of people don't even see opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that they don't see opportunities even to hit them in the forehead. And even if they do, that doesn't mean, there's a lot of people that won't take advantage of opportunities unless they see a perceived guaranteed outcome, which there is never a guaranteed outcome. You know, people switch horses midstream all the time, you know, and so I just feel that people that are the most successful just have a greater ability to adapt to that change, those challenges and obstacles when they do happen. And it's not if they do, they will.
Yeah. When
we call it life.
Yeah. Yeah. With the risk. Do you like, if you have clients that reach out, is it just like you're doing readings via Zoom in person? And then you said you offer classes.
Yes, I do. These days, pretty much 95% is Zoom. You know, when COVID hit, I was a little scared because right before COVID I went to Portland for a week and I had 16 readings scheduled in person. I wasn't doing Zoom yet. I was doing, you know, a lot of 2 Bunch Palms with people coming there as guests or even doing day passes back then. And then COVID hit and 2 Bunch kind of stopped for a while. Everything stopped. And I was like going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And many of my other readers that I know of were in the same boat. And I knew if some people were out there doing phone readings and other people were going, well, I'm going to try Zoom, see how that works. And I'm going, God, is it going to work as well though?
Yeah.
And so there was somebody I knew who wanted a reading that I've read for before. And so we went ahead and set it up and I'm going, all right, we're going to see how this works. I don't know how this road is going to go here, but we went ahead and did it. And it was just as effective, just as much clarity. And I even wondered, is it because I know their energy already and I've already had this familiarity with a complete stranger, someone I've never met before? And, you know, it wasn't very long before that came up and it was like, all right, let's see how this book goes. And sure enough, every reader I've spoken to have all said they've had no problems doing Zoom readings. And they were also worried too. And so I haven't had a problem with it yet. I find it's just every bit as effective, which is great.
Yeah.
Because like a couple of weeks ago, I had in 1 week, I had a reading with a client in London, 1 in upstate New York, 1 in Manhattan, 2 in DC, Florida, Austin, of course, LA, Seattle, Portland. And it's like been no problem. In fact, now it's sort of like people don't have to wait until we get together. When the challenge is in front of them, they can get immediate assistance other than trying to figure out how we're going to be in the same place.
Yeah. I always wonder energetically, because that's actually, you answered my question. I was wondering energetically if it does make a difference on Zoom or not.
I was worried in the beginning it would, but it certainly hasn't, nor for any other reader that I know of. Everyone's been doing really, really well.
Yeah. And it makes sense because it's like, it only can increase your business because, you know, people, like you said, if there's urgency, it's the easiest way to do it.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of people that, you know, timing is everything. Things come up. And especially if they need to make fast decisions, you know, and it's like, I never make decisions for them. I will never tell a person what to do. I will give them their options. I will give them clarity so they can make better choices. But even then I get people who go, Stephen, what should I do? What should I do? And it's like, no, that's my part. All I can do is give you your options. Now, I have said maybe once or twice in the past, you might want to get off your butt and participate in your own life. That I might have said. And it comes from a place of love.
100%.
Yeah. I was curious too, but now that I think about it, it's the same as what we're doing. Like we rely on like being able to connect with people energetically as well by doing these via Zoom, having these conversations. And right when you hopped on and we started talking, you could feel your energy being in the same space with us too. So it's the same. I'm sure it's the same concept.
Yeah, it feels the same as when we were face to face at 2 Bunch.
Yeah.
So did you have any type of like career or profession that is outside of your store or reading tarot before you got into like professionally reading tarot?
Yeah, it was for 30 years. I was a hairdresser. in
Nice.
Portland.
Oh yeah, I
Cooler.
remember you said
Cooler
that.
and cooler.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
My
like you can't
husband
get
and
it.
I had a salon downtown for 20 years, and it was just starting to really kill my body. I was a hairdresser for 30 years. He was a hairdresser for 47 or
Oh
40.
my
Oh my
gosh, that's
gosh.
such a long time.
Yeah, I was starting to get these Sweeney Todd visions in my head. So I kind of thought, man, can't afford the jail time. I better, about something else.
Do you guys do each other like cut each other's hair now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least that, right? You're
Yeah.
still you're still
We cut
doing.
each other's hair, and David's still cut, a couple friends' hair, and that's about it.
Yeah. So you started to have an interest when you were a teenager. When did you like really like identify that you had this gift or ability?
Well, what it was is, I think I got my first deck when I was 19. I saw my first deck when I was 18. My boyfriend had a deck, and I just thought it was so cool. And, this was like in 77. I was living in Eugene, Oregon, and I don't think there was even an occult bookstore, you know, anywhere near. I think Portland was the nearest, and I remember buying it, and I was kind of, I don't think embarrassed was the word. I jumped out of the gay closet and jumped into the tarot closet. It was, I had it and I worked with it, but I didn't know what I was doing, and even if you found a bookstore that had one, they might have a Rider Waite deck, maybe, and maybe one tarot book to work with, but usually have those obnoxious little keyword books. And so, there wasn't Google back then. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't as much information or training accessible. So back in the 70s, it was just a lot of trial and error. And I worked on it really hard all through my 20s. And I was in my early 30s. And I had met a woman who was a very, very interesting. She was a reader, and she was encouraging me, and I was like going, I just don't know. I mean, it's fun and I really love it. And yeah, I mean, it helps for me, but I don't know if I could actually use it to help anyone else. And so we would trade readings for each other. And at one point, like several months went by, and she sent me a letter of all things. We live in the same town. She sent me a letter.
Romantic.
I know, just gonna say that.
She wrote, and in the letter she goes, I know you feel insecure. I know you feel this is something you can't do, but I've been keeping a log of every single thing you've told me.
Oh my gosh.
And when it was going to happen. And you said I wasn't going to meet this man until 8 months. In the middle of the month, and she goes, I met him on the 15th in the middle of the month, 8 months. And she had documented everything that, when it was all individual, I didn't see anything. And then I'm looking at this log she kept of what I said and what happened, and I went, oh, well, that's kind of cool. And then I was very fortunate. I was 35 when my ex died, and I met a woman who became my mentor for 20 years. And she is the most amazing reader I have ever met. I mean, I aspire to be like her. She's just such a beautiful soul and such a talent, and it's very specific. All of her readings were hard readings. There's hard readings, soft readings. Hard readings are always the goal, because they're very specific, very detailed. A soft reading is just a little more general. And she was just amazing. All of her readings were very, very specific, very detailed. And unfortunately, she did pass 9 years ago. I have not forgiven her yet. I don't intend to. She knew it was all about me. So I was very fortunate to have her in my life for 20 years. And she had always said in my 40s, she goes, you're going to be doing this for a living someday. And I go, oh, I love it. And she goes, no, you are going to be doing this for a living someday. And I was like going, well, I appreciate your confidence. But, at that time I was so busy performing, and I was so busy with my, the salon and, all of this other things. The thought of doing that on top of it was just not even in the question at that time in my life.
Yeah. Okay, wait. So we did say it. I want to. Can you explain the difference between the hard readings and the soft readings? Because Melissa and I know this from your class, but
Right. Well, the hard readings are always the goal, I mean, like, I went to a very well-known reader once in Pacific Northwest. I'll just leave it at that. And for me at that time, it was a lot of money. It was probably 30 years ago. But she had an amazing reputation. And so I went and I sat down with her, and she sat there very quietly and threw down her cards. And then she goes, okay, the universe is telling me you're here to do good. I'm like, what? That's it. And then it was all this vague stuff that was so like, okay, what do you do with that? And it was like,
yeah.
and then, it's like with my mentor, she was amazing. It was like she was very specific. I mean, things like, okay, Stephen, this is right after my ex died. Somewhere in a couple of months, somewhere between Christmas and New Year's, you're going to meet a man. He's 38 years old, 6'4", dark hair, short beard, Sagittarius,
Wow.
lives in Seattle, does something for a living that's outdoorsy, but creative. She goes, I don't even know what that means. You'll figure it out. And she was, I mean, it was like, and it happened, and you can't make those elements just happen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, she was always very specific, and but she was also really good about encouraging you, but also not telling you what to do, just showing you your options so you can make better choices for yourself. But the more information you have, with like the harder readings, gives people more information on their potential of what they can do. Some people aren't conditioned to trust themselves. Like everybody's born intuitive. Everybody is born intuitive, but so many people are conditioned not to trust it or not to lean in it. And that can happen through how they're raised, their culture, the part of the country you lived in, your parents' politics, religion, all of these things are factors. And people are conditioned to be very, very mental. Well, the thing is, it's like people are reconnecting to their intuitive sides at a much higher capacity. And there are, it's like anything else. There's some people are more than others. There's intuitive families, just like there's athletic families, musical families, artistic families. And like with tarot is something that anyone can learn. But I always say it's like, well, anyone can learn play the piano. So you can throw 5 people can, start piano lessons in one day. And in 20 years, someone could be on a symphony stage. Someone else can be playing in a jazz club, and someone else can still be at home torturing their family with only a slightly better version of Mary Had a Little Lamb. But, they can learn. It's just that it's not about comparing ourselves to other people and being the best versions of ourselves.
Yep. And so many people don't want to live that way, which I feel like we talk about this all the time, but blows my mind.
Yeah.
They fight it. It's like, oh God, life could be so good.
But it is those conditionings, it's all those things that put up these blocks for us sometimes. And you have to look beyond it
And two, it's like a lot of women, it's easier for a lot of women to trust their intuition than it is for a lot of men.
Yeah.
And a lot of men too, when you look at especially older generations, like, my generation or older, it's like you might be coming from a place where, your family, that, let's say, you're a 4-year-old little boy and you fall down and you cut your knee open on a rock and you cry. And then you have dad going, don't cry. Boys don't cry. You're a man now. Turn it off. And you're like going, I'm 4.
This hurts.
And then your little sister can do the same thing. And it's, oh, here, let daddy kiss it and make it better for you.
Yeah.
So, boys are conditioned in the older generations, not as much anymore, thank God, but in older generations to detach from the emotional side. And then 2, you get into school You're playing sports, and if a boy in school shows emotion, now he's a sissy, you know. And so they're kind of conditioned to detach a little from expressing their emotional side. Then they marry women who are very in tune, and they wonder why they have all these emotionally disconnected husbands. Well, from years of conditioning.
Yeah, yeah. That's so true.
But that doesn't mean too that an older person in my generation can't look at the younger generations of men who are given permission to, or taking the permission themselves to express their emotions, and they can choose to shed some of those rigid boundaries if they want to. And some are, you know, there's a lot of men who are conditioned to be more mental over emotional, but that doesn't mean it's stuck.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those too. So it's fortunately in this day and age, it's a little bit more fair to the younger guys to be in touch with their intuitive and emotional sides.
More accepted. Do you feel like your clientele is more primarily women versus men?
It's probably a little more women, a little. I have a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, interesting demographics. You know, one thing I found so interesting, and it's just, I just start laughing again, you know, I get people who take my class, they call me whatever, and they want to do readings, they want to learn tarot. And I was like, what do you do for a living? And it's like, oh, I'm a psychotherapist, or I'm a psychiatrist, or I'm a counselor, or it's like, you know, it's like, that is like one of the biggest demographics. And another one is I get a lot of writers. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
I feel like that makes sense though, because you're, you know, psychology and psychiatry is so mental, but then, you know, this piece of it is just very intuitive, and you have to go with feelings and emotions. And I could see wanting to have that like full scope.
Yeah, more of like a range. Yeah, it's true, because when you go to like a therapist or whatever, it's very like logical feedback
Right.
versus like somebody like me who I am like highly emotional. And I mean, in my younger self, to my detriment, you know, I'd have an emotional response to stuff that didn't like deserve it, instead of
Right.
controlling myself. And they give you logical reasoning versus, you know, when I feel connected more to my own self is when I do go get a tarot reading or go to like some type of healer, and they're like, you know, giving me advice that resonates with me better than like common sense, like just don't have that emotional reaction. It's like, yeah, well, duh, bitch, I'm like doing my best, you know, doing my absolute best.
What else?
That's hilarious.
So what are some of the challenge, like your specific challenges that you face with this profession, with reading tarot?
He's like, soft readings. remember our class? You were like, great, like everybody had soft readings. You were like, cool.
Boring.
It was like, yeah, it was like Melissa's having a like great or something better job. Mine was like, this guy you have is great, like all this shit that we were like.
Yeah, well, you know, and sometimes too, it's not always like that. Oh boy. I mean, you know, I've had groups where every single person is going through emotional upheaval and personal crisis. And, you know, and two, it's like, especially in group situations, I don't like to out anybody on anything. So I do keep it a little lighter. And even when groups of people want readings, you know, I say, if you want it in a group reading, it is going to be softer. It's going to be lighter, because I don't want to bring anything to the surface that would make anybody feel uncomfortable or outed. And so I had like 6 women that they were all friends, and they wanted readings. And it was like, okay, just come and knock on the door in X amount of minutes, and, you know, keep them coming, you know. And so that is fine, you know, because then I feel I can be not edit, not, you know, be a little more blunt. And so yeah, it's so the challenges sometimes, you know, people can throw up walls. It's like people can come to you and they say they want help, but then they sit there and they looking at me like they're the Unabomber and they're going to kick my ass. And I'm like, what are you doing here? You know, and, you know, there's different personality types that are more difficult. Like the worst people to read for are narcissists.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
They're
They
the
want
worst people to be around.
Yeah, I was like, period.
Yeah, it's like, they want to come to you and you tell them that, yeah, they're the right one, and every single person in their life is what's wrong. And I had one woman I was getting very frustrated with, and I could tell she was getting frustrated with me, and she was going on about the challenges in her love relationship, her work relationship, her family relationship, or every relationship in her life. And I'm trying to diplomatically bring it around, and she was just not having it. Finally, I just had to look at her and say, okay, in all of these challenges that you are now discussing and bringing to the surface, the only thing I can ask you is, who is the common denominator? Oh, that went over really well. I think she called me an asshole.
Hey, that could have been way worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going, hey, she wasn't going to listen to reason. She wasn't going to listen to logic. She wasn't going to respect other people's borders and boundaries. She wasn't going to, all of these things. And then, everything, but then she threw it back at me as if it was my problem to solve for her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, girl.
It's gonna get you.
Yeah, it's almost like, why'd you even come here?
Oh yeah. Well,
like if you have all the answers.
Yeah, well, and some people just want to hear, they want a validation that they are right, even when they're not.
I mean, how many people in our own lives, I can speak for in my own like professional life, there's certain people that will go around and go to every single person and tell their story, their whatever's going on, until someone validates what they want to hear.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, like younger me definitely did that. Coming from a place of just trauma, like younger me for sure was like, I need to get everybody's opinion on this. And if you don't agree with me, like I don't want to talk to
next.
You know what I mean? Because younger me was a more insecure person that wasn't like standing on what she believed in 10 toes down. I mean, I'm wrong. A lot of my older me is wrong too, but now I'm just like, whatever, I accept it, move on.
Yeah.
Steven?
Well, and different people have, you come from a different place. There's some people that just see way too many readers. I got a client about a month ago who I did a reading for. And when we finished, she goes, I'd like to go ahead. Can we book another appointment for next week at the same time? And I went, no, why?
Yeah.
And she goes, well, you've helped me more in the last hour than my therapist has weekly for the last 3 years. And I said, well, that's very sweet. I appreciate that. You might want to get a new therapist. But, but it's sort of like, no, you got to make your choices and live your life. If a person's going through a lot, I had one woman who everything in her life went up in the air. Her relationship, her work. I mean, there were so many variables that went all up into the air at once, and she just felt very ungrounded. So I told her, I said, she wanted to connect like in a month. I go, why don't we do 3 months? You need to live your life and make your choices and see the repercussions of your choices.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, through this long group of challenges, I saw her every 3 months for a year. But that is, probably the most frequent I would recommend. People who want to go, every month or something like that, it's like, nah, that's a little frequent, sister.
Yeah.
And then too, I had one woman I did a reading for a couple of months ago, and I finished with it, and she was elated. And then she goes, this is just so bizarre, Stephen. She goes, you are the 4th person to almost say the exact word for word thing in the last 2 months. She says, I saw 2 mediums, an astrologer, and you, and all 4 of you said almost identically word for word. And I went, well, consistency is good. And what the hell are you seeing 4 people in 2 months for?
She's like, actually, after this, I'm going to go to Disneyland. I have an appointment with Mickey Mouse. I'm going to see what he thinks. So that'll be number 5. Like,
that's something I really appreciate, the integrity you have for this craft, or like that. There's lots of people out there that would say, great, let's book it at once a week. Let me take that cashola from you, but
No,
you're
Oh,
you're
it's a money making.
but
Pardon?
that's how you can tell the difference
Mhm.
between someone's that's doing this for the right reasons and with integrity versus someone that is just doing it
Mhm.
to make some money.
Yeah, the thing is, I just bring things to the surface with clarity. They have to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones that have to choose what they're going to do with it. And if they're seeing me every week, they're clearly not doing their own work. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going to do it for them.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you know, I think that, you know, it's like, you know, live your life. We can, you know, if things, you know, go sideways, I don't mind connecting, but, you know, you just need to now make choices and see how they reflect in your life.
Yeah.
Don't you feel like that's something we talk about a lot is doing the work, you know? I think
Yeah.
we say it all the time is like you can't just go to therapy once a month, once a week or whatever and that's it. You know, it's like so much of what you consume in general and what other outside like what other outside factors you're taking in. You got to do the work. You have to. It's not just going to your therapist, unleashing or dumping your stuff on them and then walking out and that's it. You got to do the work.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to, and some
No.
people also want to blame somebody else if it doesn't go, the outcome isn't what they desired it to be. And
Mhm.
that's unfortunate because they're going to keep living in this cycle.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, I had a very dear friend for many years who saw a therapist once a week for 30 years. And I believe for her, part of it was she was buying a friend. And I also believe that by being able to say she was in therapy for this, that now she could live her life as she wanted without fear of judgment of other people. Why aren't you doing something about it? Well, I am. I'm seeing a therapist. She certainly wasn't doing the work.
Yep.
You know, that's for sure. You know, so yeah, people have their different reasons. And again, sometimes they need to tell themselves, I'm doing the work,
Mhm.
when they're really not. That
Yep.
and they just think showing up, making that appointment, you know, that's the work. No, that's not the work part.
Yeah.
The work is when you leave the office.
1 hour every week just talking to somebody is not doing the work,
No,
unfortunately.
we all have one of those friends for sure. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's crazy. So what do you feel besides dealing with the crazy narcissist asshole calling narcissist? What do you feel like are some of the biggest challenges with doing this?
Well, you know, sometimes it's getting too many people in one day. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, because that's dealing with a lot of people's energy, and it's hard to
Yeah,
kind
I
of
didn't even
shift
think about that.
from one to another. I mean, I know I had one day a few months, like 3 months ago. It was wild. I mean, I got up, I did a 9 o'clock Zoom reading, I did a 10:15 Zoom reading, I went to Two Bunch and I did a private guest reading. Then I taught a class to like 12 people, and that went 2 hours long. And then I did another private after that and came home and did another Zoom reading.
Oh my
And
gosh.
A lot.
all I could do is shove a little bit of food in my face, and I think I was in bed at 7. It was like that's too much. That's too much.
Yeah.
Uh, I like doing like a class a day and maybe 2 readings.
Yeah.
That's comfortable, and that makes you feel a little more balanced and not pulled at. And it's easier to shift energy. Like even sometimes in those classes, you have 12 people. Like a couple of weeks ago, I had 20 people in class.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
I know it was really crowded, and they were uncomfortable because most of them were standing, and they were crowded, and the room was getting hot, and you could the energy was frenetic because of the discomfort of people.
Mhm.
And it was like going, I have to limit these classes. I can't. It's not going to work. I can't be my best if I have that many people all at once. So I have a little sign now. So it's like when the class is full, it's full.
Yeah, I was actually wondering that when we went where I'm like, it doesn't seem like they cap any of the classes.
Well, it depends on what it is. Like the art class can only take so many people with space to do art.
Mhm.
This, I now have a sign that says, you know, classes at full capacity, no more for the amount of time allotted. There is no more time for any more 3 cards, because those are just little general 3-card readings. Those are not very deep or specific.
Oh,
You
we
know,
loved it.
yeah. Well,
That's fun.
you know, I let people know that 3-card readings, because it is only 3 cards, it is considered a soft reading. But then at sometimes, you know, I'll have a room one night where every person went into a breakdown, and it accidentally turned into hard readings for everybody. And it was like going, I thought this was supposed to be soft.
This is supposed to be fun. Yeah, weren't you telling us a story about like a cheating situation? Wasn't it that one?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Are there
Take it-
any like
But
any-
that wasn't in the class. That one was a private. That
God.
was a couples reading, which I hate couples readings.
Yeah, I remember you
Um,
saying that.
I hate doing couples readings because so often this person's problem is sitting 1 foot to their left. And you know, and
How do you eloquently word that? So your biggest issue in life?
he's just like
Yeah,
a little head nod off to
like
the
heavy
side.
eye contact. Like,
No, what I usually do, because you know, then it's like I have to be so carefully select my words, because I don't want to again, I don't want to out anybody in front of them. I I wouldn't even out them anyway. I would word things in a way that would make them question people. Like with this one, I told him, I said, someone, I just need to tell you, I seriously feel there's someone in your inner circle, someone very close to you who is betraying you right now. So he can sit there and think about his inner circle. And, you know, then you know, things just flash in your head. You know, it's like I said, tarot cards is just paper and ink. It's about the images they flash in your head. And, you know, what I saw in the cards flashed into my head. I saw him in one room. I saw her in an adjacent room with a wall in between them, but I saw her in the arms of another man. And so I went, oh God, oh God, oh God. So, you know, and then, you know, I sometimes see clocks, calendars, numbers. Like a big number can be a year, a medium number can be a month, a small number can be a week. You know, and sometimes even the timing thing is just a little off, or sometimes you know a timing thing because it just pops into your head. And you know, so I told him, I said, I think you're going to find out exactly who this person is in 30 days. And I feel like you're going to take 30, 40 to decide what you want to do about it. And whichever way you choose, I do know your life is going to be a 180-degree turn 3 months from now. And sure enough, he emailed me 3.5 months later, said 30 days to the day, he found out his wife had been having an affair with another man for the past 2 years. They had 5 weeks to try to work it out. They decided to part their ways. He was moving forward in the business without her. And, you know, he said that, you know, this had been a really difficult time for him, but he said, you know, I just wanted to write you and thank you for the heads up. You know, sorry for the spoiler alert, but, you know, it's sometimes it's like, rather than, I feel like sometimes if you say, if you don't let them come to their own conclusions, then they can almost shut you off. They don't open themselves up to think about what all the possibilities are. And so, you know, I do think that it helps a lot of times. I mean, and sometimes I do need to say things very directly. You know, you have to be able to communicate with people that they're being mindful and respectful of their capacity to comprehend. And some people, if you're not blunt, they're going to hear what they want to hear.
Mhm.
Other people can they can really absorb the subtleties more fully. So it's just speaking to people in the way that they're the most receptive, and also so they can come to their own conclusions. And I don't want them to ever feel that I told them what to do.
Yeah.
It's about letting them come to their conclusions.
I
in
wonder whose
scenarios
idea it was.
to go there.
Yeah.
Hey, what?
I wonder whose idea it was to go. She was
Oh.
like, shit, like, man, I really
I think
I
in
really
those,
shit the bed on that one.
don't you, like in those situations though, I should have bet on that was her.
I always like screw the pooch too.
Yeah.
I feel like he I'm sure had some inkling that something like that was going on, and that was
I think a
just
lot of people do, but they want to live in denial.
yeah.
And the thing is, though, too, a lot of times people will think something doesn't seem right and then just shake it off. Like, I don't know what I'm thinking. But if you bring it up and you bring up something that you know they've already been feeling, now it makes it more real. Now they might think about looking into that a little deeper.
Mhm.
And so it makes people question. A lot of people, they get a lot of self-doubt, they don't trust themselves, they don't trust their intuition. And again, that could be part of their conditioning. And, I know a lot of women I've worked with who are very, intuitive, but for a time in their life, they might have been under the oppression of a male partner who maybe cut them off or say, oh, don't be stupid, don't say that, demean them for being connected. And so then they've just learned to have this silenced voice. And, at some time, they usually will break away. I have seen some stay, but at some point, a lot of those people can outgrow those relationships.
Yeah.
So much gaslighting.
Right. Do you have
yeah.
any other memorable readings that you can share that obviously will keep people's private stuff private?
God.
Spill the tea.
Spill
the
the
ones
tea.
that are the most memorable are the ones I can't talk about, of course.
We'll take a
Sure.
semi-memorable.
But I was working with this one woman, and it was really interesting because I was just trying to figure her out. And my grandfather speaks in my right ear every once in a while, 3 to 4 inches. I wish he was a little more frequent, but whatever. And I'm trying to work out this issue with this woman, and I'm just like stumped. I can't see it. Why is she in her own way? And it was like, yeah, I know her husband's a challenge, but what is going on? And then my grandfather clearly said in my ear very loudly, her husband rapes her.
Oh my gosh.
And then I sat there, and it was like, I looked like someone just gut punched me. My jaw just kind of fell open. And it was like, then I started thinking about the conversation. I started thinking back, and it was like, oh my God.
Jeez.
Now I get it, and it's like, okay, how do I navigate this one? Because sometimes a lot of very, very sensitive things come up that depending on how you approach it with that person, it could be very painful to them, especially if they feel they're developing, they're revealing some very deep layers they don't even want to reveal to themselves. And so it's like, sometimes it's very difficult to choose words carefully to be as effective and productive as possible. So you just don't know. Everybody is different. And most readings, I've been getting several lately, like a couple of this guy, he came to me, and I looked at his spread, and I went, oh my God, things are amazing. What are we doing here? And he was like going, I know, I just wanted to hear it from you. Just an affirmation, a confirmation that no one's pulling the rug out from under my feet. Everything, I'm not missing anything here.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will come to me for clarity. And at the end of the reading, I've had many people say, okay, I'm still going to do exactly what I plan to do. I'm just going to do it quicker with more determination. And like, you go,
Yeah.
absolutely. Some people just need the affirmation that they are on the right path, or they are beating their head on the right door, and also too, I never tell people, like, I had a situation where I told somebody once, who was very talented, had the ability to be very successful. And I'm going, you know what? You keep doing what you're doing, and those doors are going to open. It's not going to be in a year. It's not even going to be 2 years, but it's going to be, this is a lot of work. This is a big deal, but it can be your goal on a 5-year effort. And then all of a sudden he just kind of went, oh, well, great, it's going to happen. I don't have to work so hard. He just changed everything. He all of a sudden his momentum came out of his sales. He decided, I don't have to work so hard after all. It's gonna happen. And I'm like, no, it's not gonna. It's like, because of your hard work, you have to keep that momentum. You have to keep that force, that focus on point, on your toes. All of that energy, that drive has to be there, because it can't happen without that drive or that passion. The universe isn't going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting, it's being very careful that people hear what I say and not what they want to hear. And even sometimes if I see if someone might ask me a question that doesn't really align with what I just said, I might say, tell me what you think I just said to you. What did you just hear from me?
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'll tell it. And I go, close, not quite right, but close. Let's back up.
Yeah.
So
just to get clarity.
Yeah.
So
so the moral of the story is do the work.
Yeah.
Do the work.
Don't stop.
Show up, do the work.
We're like a walking inspirational ad right now.
I know. Look at that. And like I said, it's a great tool, and people can use it for themselves. They can use it for other people. They can use it for their own self-development, even if they don't plan on ever reading for anybody else. It is a great way to hone a person's own intuition. And when you start honing it and start leaning into it and start seeing, because like I said, everyone's born intuitive. Everyone has had that friend that is, you're sitting there over a glass of wine and they're going on about some dramatic thing happening in their love life. And you can get a flash in your head of what they're not telling you or what it's really about. And maybe you don't say anything. And then a week goes by, a month goes by, the whole story finally comes out of their mouth. And it's like, you already knew it.
Yeah.
How many times have you been thinking about somebody you haven't thought about in like months, and all of a sudden your cell phone rings 2 seconds later, there they are.
Yeah.
Everyone's had those experiences. Everyone is born intuitive. It's just that people have been conditioned to not trust it, not lean into it. Again, it could be out of fear of judgment. It could just be out of lack of self-confidence. They get caught up in the conditioning of all that mental.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who was going through something like a couple years ago, just like having, a lot of mental stuff going on. And I've had cards for a long time. I was afraid to say that in your classes. I was like, that was like the first thing I think you asked, like, does anybody here have their own cards? And I was like, I don't want to. Is he going to make me do something that I don't want to do?
No.
Amateur, no.
I always want people to be comfortable in the classes.
Yeah, like we would always read his cards, not all the time, but like at least every couple of weeks, and it would always resonate with him. And it was like the answers he was seeking, he was getting. And I was like, this is your energy. Like I start the same way with everybody. Like you need to shuffle these cards, put your energy in it, put your intentions, like really think about what you want, what you want to get out of this. And it was helpful. It was a helpful tool for him.
And for some people, I recommend, even just getting up in the morning and pulling a card of the day, just as a theme for the day. And then maybe at the end of the day, when you go to bed, to do maybe a 3-card reading for yourself and see how it reflected how your day went. I don't want people doing it in the morning, because then they're going to make choices based on 3 cards. I'm like, don't make your choices based on that. Just live your life, but people dictate how their day will go because of the card. I'm just like, stop it. But yeah. And so it's like I post on my Instagram and Facebook. I post a deck of the week. So, and the deck can be 600 years old. It could be less than a year old. And I'll do the history, when it was published, about the artist, the author, whatever I could find about the deck. And then every day that week, I post the card of the day, and then talk about that. So that's another fun way to learn too. If a person wants to do it, but they don't have their own deck.
What's the deck that you're doing right now? Because it feels very Halloween themed.
Oh, that it is. I mean, I have so many Halloween themed decks. I had to start in September.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've been
That's
enjoying
still,
them.
yeah, that's still not all of them. This one's called the Dark Mansion.
The
So
dark
it's
range.
very cute, Victorian,
So
lots of
cute.
dual tones. Yeah, it's a very cute deck. I love this deck. And I have a couple, like last week was the Zombie Tarot, which was hilarious.
Love.
I have another couple of funny ones coming up and another couple of really beautiful ones.
I love
Awesome.
that.
So where can people find you? Like, what's your Instagram, website if you have it?
Yes, my website is fairly easy here. It's StephenNashTarot.com, Stephen with a V. And then my Instagram is Stephen Nash Tarot. At Stephen Nash Tarot. And then my email is StephenNashTarot@gmail. Do you see a theme here?
I love it.
It's pretty
I
simple.
I have a question. So what are like for people that are going to listen to this and like we said, tarot's been more of a conversation, an open conversation the last couple of years. What are some red flags to look for when you're looking to, for your person to connect with? Because I do believe that's a thing. Like I definitely felt like when Melissa and I both, when we left, we felt connected to you. Whereas the story I shared before we started recording, I've had a lot of readings with people where I'm like, no, like that didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel like I connected
Right,
with that person. What
right.
are some like I guess green and red flags
Well, the reading is always about the client. It is never about the reader.
yeah.
And I don't really, I mean, sometimes we might interject personal things people can relate to,
Mm-hmm.
but the person always has to feel like they are the focus,
Mm-hmm.
that the reader isn't pulling focus to feed their own ego or whatever. And fortunately, most readers I know in my world come from a very good place and really sincerely want to help, and they really care, because it is a lot of energy and it is a lot of work. And if you don't care, about helping people through their challenges, then it's a drain. And so they have to, for me, I feel like it has to come from a place of passion.
Okay.
And that the person walks away feeling empowered. They feel they have choices, even if they couldn't see them before. Now, again, some of the choices might be difficult. I tell everyone there are no bad cards. Every card in the deck is a gift. Now, some cards offer more challenges, but the greater the challenge, the greater the gift. The universe creates discomfort to encourage us to make changes. If we stayed comfortable, no one would ever change. No one would ever grow. And people often, when they feel that discomfort, they can try to avoid it. They can try to navigate around it, where really the gift is to lean into it. And I love it when I see all the challenging cards on the out there, because you get cards of puppies and kittens skipping through fields of daisies all day long, and yeah, it feels good, but it does nothing to raise the vibrational frequency of the soul. It's the challenging cards that do that. So when I see the challenging cards out there, it's like, yes, that is a person who is willing to make themselves uncomfortable to be a better version of themselves. And like the most misunderstood card in the deck is actually my favorite card. It's a beautiful card. I blame Hollywood for this. And that's the Death card.
Yeah.
It's the card before, the Hangman, that's doing all the work Hollywood gives the Death card credit for. Then once we've shed those things that no longer serve us and they're dead to us now, the Death card is like the phoenix rising from the ashes. It's about transformation and rebirth. So it is a welcome card in any reading and is by far my favorite. And in numerology, I add up to 13, death.
I love that. I think that's one big thing that I learned when we were in Two Bunch is I also, not knowing a ton about tarot cards in general, thought like you're in trouble if you pull the death card.
No, I love the Death card. Bring it on.
That's awesome.
But we started talking about this kind of in the beginning, but I might have already told you this story when we were in Palm Springs, but when I was in New Orleans, I always do, whenever I travel, I try to find all like the free walking tours, which is like typically the college kids that, you just tip them at the end, whatever. So when I was in New Orleans, I did every possible tour, like the ghost tour, the blah 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 tour. So we did the Haitian.
Me too.
Yes, it's my favorite, especially New Orleans. I freaking love New Orleans.
I love New Orleans.
Oh, right. Like I love it there.
Fabulous city.
But we did like the Haitian tour, and it was really cool because it was literally just somebody who was Haitian, or no, the voodoo tour, not the Haitian tour, the
Yeah,
voodoo
the
tour.
voodoo tour.
He was explaining, his voodoo as a religion and just how Hollywood has basically like demonized their religion and made it seem
Right.
like it's, a bunch. And I'm like, as a kid who grew up in the 80s, I'm like, oh my God, like literally there's all these movies that just talk about voodoo, like
Yep.
this horrible, I didn't even know it was a religion until I took
Yeah.
this tour.
Yeah, they have to demonize something.
Yeah, so it's like so interesting that tarot, because I feel like Melissa and I have been interested in so many different spiritual things forever. This is always really connected with us. So, to have the, privilege of coming to Two Bunch Palms, which is what it is. It is a privilege that we both have. To be able to have that trip and meet you, and also meet, I don't remember her name, but the other reader,
Donna,
She did the angel
Yeah.
cards. Yes, yes.
who is amazing. I love Donna too.
I adore her. I adore
Yeah.
her.
I already knew I would, because we started with you and you were like, oh, you have to go to Donna. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna love Donna. And we did, obviously. She was amazing.
And Ron's great too.
So
Ron-
we didn't get to meet
Yeah.
him.
Oh, yeah, it probably wasn't scheduled
Yeah.
because they kind of stagger us. So, people
Yeah.
aren't sometimes there long enough to see everybody.
Yep.
But he was even telling me, he goes, I think guests think, that you, Donna, and I get together and sit and talk about them so we can tell them the same thing. And I'm like, I don't even know their names. What are you talking about?
There's not like a personal info sheet we filled out before we booked. We just,
Yeah.
like, what's your favorite? What are you currently going through? Like, none of those questions were asked.
Hey, there's just like microphones all over the grotto and the
Yeah,
floor.
that's it,
right?
that's it. That's
They
it.
would have loved our combos.
Oh my God.
You, Frank, Michael, and I.
They would have had to censor all of that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, so I think it is really cool. Like everything that gets kind of trendy, I think it's really cool that it puts tarot in such a good in a light, or in a on a more of a platform for people to understand it as a helpful tool.
Well,
But having these conversations is what makes it even more special.
Well, that's what I wanted my class to be, because a lot of people feel like it's something that's not for them. And if you give them a format, you give them an understanding of, like I said, it's always, I learn what the cards mean first, then throw the rules away and let the intuition take over. But if they understand what the court cards do, if they understand what the minor pips do, if they understand what the major arcana does, and the energies of each and how they relate, and then the energy of the four suits, and then the numerology, it kind of gives people a mental picture of, oh, this is something that I can navigate. It makes it tangible. And so it gives them a place of, okay, I think I can do this. It gives them a starting point, and again, it's about, you never learn it all. I've been at this now 45 years, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm still a student.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, it's like layers of an onion. You keep pulling back, and just when you feel like, okay, I think I've got all this now, I know it all, then all of a sudden all this other information starts coming to the surface, and it's like, oh boy, here we go. And two, it's like, I always tell people, when you get your deck, to pull out a Sharpie and write those keywords so you get a image word association. And then if you're into astrology, runes, I Ching, Kabbalah, they're all connected, they're all related. Pull out your Sharpie and write those. It's just another level of information. And again, it's those images and the information that flips the triggers in your head.
Mhm.
That's what things pop in. And it's like anything else, it just takes practice.
Yeah. What's a good beginner deck that you would suggest people start with?
I always say one of the Rider-Waite's, and God knows there's probably over 40, 50 versions of it. I like the Radiant is the one I use in class, because it's just the brightest colors. It's just pretty.
Yeah.
There's some other ones that are a little distracting. But even the original one, that Rider-Waite, it's a little more, it's a very arts and crafts style, but the colors are a little more muted in the original. The red is a little more brick, and the yellow is a little more mustard, and which is why I like the Radiant. Plus, if you get somebody who wants create a mood, and work with their cards. What's like a candle? They're brighter. You can see them better. So I like
Vibe.
exactly. People want to create a vibe. I get some people like, oh yes, I liked it when I do my 3-card reading at night. I've set up my altar, my candles, all my crystals, and I'm going, yeah, that's whatever makes you feel connected.
I loved when we were in Two Bunch and you told us, all these people do these things. They knock on their cards a bunch of times or they do different things. And you're like, you know what I do? I open my deck and I pull it out. That's so funny. But everybody has their own process.
Everybody has their own thing, but I do have my own thing. Remember, I do the first shuffle.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did say
I
that.
do the first shuffle.
Yeah.
So, and so everybody has their way of connecting. And my thing is that part of that too is they've created a ritual that gives them a sense of connectedness.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I encourage it.
Yep.
If that makes them feel connected, whatever, do it.
Yeah,
Because
do it.
if that's giving them the confidence, the insight, then yes, it is important. Different people have different things that they do. So it's just whatever you connect with, it's just create your own ritual.
Yep.
I don't like too many directions because then I start getting confused. Like, so what you need to do is knock 3 times, spin this around your head, pick up the rose. I'm like,
all I know, you lost me after knock 3 times.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I can't.
But I think there's something beautiful with certain rituals that help people. Like people meditate differently as well, right? Some people like to be outside and they're not distracted by noises or brightness. And then some people like to be in dark, rooms where it's if they open their eyes, they still can't see anything. And easily distracted.
And two, it's like that's why I like doing the Celtic crust spread, and I like the placement of the tradition, the ritual of it. For me, that's where I get that aspect. Now, maybe you take somebody who's a little more free willy, and they feel like, oh, that's way too structured. The thing is, many people, there's many spreads out there, and many people could just make up their own spreads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What makes sense to them, and the only thing that matters is accuracy.
Yeah.
If you don't have accuracy, then what's the point? But I know a lot of people that they do not follow any traditional spreads. And I've met some people who will just throw cards down differently every time. They just kind of go how the spirit moves. Me, I like the tradition. I like that structure. And that's why I pick a deck with a great sense of reverence. I always encourage decks based on the Rider-Waite system. Now there's one that's been out now for about 3 years, and it's a really cool deck. It's called Light Seers, and it's really gotten a lot of traction because it's kind of gender fluid, hipster, and it's a beautiful deck. The colors are gorgeous, and a lot of the imagery is Rider-Waite-ish, but not all of it. And the ones that even aren't, even though they're not identical, it still reflects the true meaning of the cards. So I like that deck a lot. A lot of decks, some of the authors kind of go off on their own tangents a little bit. So they may not be the best to learn on, because then when you pick up a different deck, it's completely different. I always consider the Rider-Waite the mothership. It is defined tarot as we know and use it today. Yes, there is a little more Lenormand before that, but the Rider-Waite was 1909. Rider was a publisher, Arthur Waite was the author, and Pamela Coleman Smith did the artwork. And she was an amazing illustrator in both London and New York in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And she's, in the last 20 years or so, she's really gotten the respect that she's deserved, and her artwork has now become highly collectible. And so she worked on that deck with Arthur Waite for 2 years, which is amazing in itself. He was not warm and fuzzy. And he micromanaged her on the major arcana down to every symbol, every detail, every color has a purpose. And then he kind of gave her free will on the minor arcana, as long as she made the swords look super dark and creepy. And they do, but they're not really. So it's like kind of that has sort of defined tarot as we know it today.
You had Melissa at Free Willy.
I saw how hard you laughed when he said that. I was like, Throw me under. Well, I mean, this has been awesome. Did you have any more questions, Stacey?
No, I feel like everything that popped into my head, I was like, I'm shooting it out the cannon right now.
I know this has been better than I even imagined. Like, we very thoroughly enjoyed, like we said, our session with you and just getting to meet you. And so this has just been icing on top of that, getting to dig a little deeper and having some one-on-one time with you. So,
well,
it's
thank
been
you so much.
awesome.
It's very much an honor to be with you ladies again.
Aw.
Thank you.
Well,
Us
thank you
too.
so much. So, one last plug for yourself was your shop is V and G
Yeah, VNG Hipwear is the name of the business.
Hipwear.
Our Instagram is VANDG Palm Springs.
Okay.
Got it.
Got it. And we'll put that on the YouTube and Spotify descriptions as well, so people will be able to find it there.
Fabulous.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and this is not the last you'll be hearing from us. I'm sure we'll be
Nope.
scheduling our readings here
Yeah,
shortly.
exactly.
And when you come back to Palm Springs, that visit has to involve us going out for a glass of wine or a cocktail or something.
Oh,
Please,
so into
please,
that.
please. We will be messaging you next time we're there.
Okay, that'll be so much fun.
All right. Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much, Stephen. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. Love you guys.
Have a good
Love
one.
you
Love you.
too.
Okay, you too.
Beautiful mess.
Bye.
Yes, life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess.